In this video, we continue our work with factoring polynomials, and I just want to remind you of what we've talked about so far. When we're factoring polynomials, our first step is going to be that we're always going to check for greatest common factor. And once we factor out the greatest common factor, then we're going to count the number of terms that are left in our polynomial. And depending on how many terms are in the polynomials, we will use different methods. So far we've used the grouping method for polynomials with 4 terms. And in our last video, we started our work with trinomials where the leading coefficient a was equal to 1. This video continues that work, but you're going to see that these problems have an added step. Let's go take a look at our first example.
So here's number 11. Take a look at that. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, that's not a quadratic. That has a cube. That's t cubed. We haven't done t cubed. Okay, but what have I been trying to train you to do every single time with every single factoring problem? Yep, look for a GCF. You're absolutely right. Did you notice that all 3 terms here have a GCF of 7t? So the first step is to factor out the 7t. Now, if you don't train yourself to do that, you might get a problem like this in a test or homework, and you're going to think to yourself, I don't know how to do this. Always look for that GCF. So 7t factored out, and then we end up with t squared plus 6t minus 7. And again, if you're still needing more practice on how to factor out greatest common factors, remember that there's another video for you to check out, okay? Now let's factor the trinomial. So it's a trinomial with our a equal to 1. So we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to c, which is -7, and that add up to a +6. And so that must be 7 and -1. What do you think? Yep. Okay, so 7t, don't lose that. That's part of your final answer. And then we get here a t plus 7 and a t minus 1. And a reminder that if I was going to check this, if we need to check this, say you're in a test or quiz and you want to check, I recommend you go ahead and multiply the binomial first and then distribute the 7t. So when we multiply the binomial first, we're going to get t squared plus 6t minus 7 and then distribute the 7t to go back to the original problem. So that's how you would check that. Okay, the last problem I'm going to leave to you. Take a look at this problem. Number 12 is our last problem. Pause the video and give it a try. Okay, did you first notice that our greatest common factor had to be -3x squared? And did you make it a negative so that our leading coefficient in the trinomial would change sign back to positive? It's a lot easier to factor these trinomials when that leading coefficient is a positive number, okay? So I went ahead and factored out the -3x squared, and then that left x squared plus x minus 30, looking for 2 numbers that multiply to -30 and add up to a 1. And that's +6 and -5. So here's our final answer. Okay, in our next video, we're going to talk about how do we factor trinomials where a is not 1. Those take a little bit more work, okay? So go to the next video when you're ready.